Greetings to you viewers, welcome to this production brought to you courtesy of Faume Media Productions. I am your host Chico Squared, and in today's lesson we are going to discuss the Mathematics O-Level syllabus for Zimbabwe Schools Examinations Council, also known as ZIMSEC. Right, so as you can see on the board, ladies and gentlemen, this is the syllabus. Uyu ndo munda watira kusakura, ndo watira kurima, watira kusakura nekukohwa zvese. Tinoburisa marizalts akanaka antunzwana ipapo. Aya ndo matopic atinofanira se atiri kufana kurya iwaya ose akadai so aya handeti. Okay, so I'm going to go through the syllabus bit by bit, tichita some objectives acho aripo kuti pamatopics atinawo ma-objectives atinofanira kunge tichizoziva at the end of the day ndeapi. Iyi inofanira kunge iri a checklist yaunoshandisa as a student achanyora ZIMSEC. I-checklist yako iyi yokuti iwewe uri dungamunhu as an individual wakagara paya unofanira kuzviongorora kuti inini apa ndaakuziva here wotika, apo ndaakuziva here wotika, apo ndaakuziva here wotika. Ukangoona wakwanisa kutika pose apapa, wakuziva zvose zviri apapa, you are now home and dry. Wakuziva kuti inini I'm going to have an A plus. Handiti kunzwanana ipapa. Okay, so let's hit the ground running. The first concept that we want to look at, that we want to dissect and dichotomize, is a concept that runs a number, concepts and operations. So under number, concepts and operations is uchiziva. So the first objective that we have in our syllabus: perform arithmetic operations using order of operations. Kachanyama order of operations and it tutanyama rules of precedence. And pama rules of precedence tutara the bomb dust ka the board maso rule and it yekuziva kuti mabracket ndo anotanga kotera division, multiplication, addition and subtraction and it chenongoti ma-concepts aya zvinhu zvokuti kubva kuprimary kunopfuura kuZJC level zvinhu zvamene chingodzidziswa, so hapafanira kunge pane problem ipapo. Then the second objective, identify rational and irrational numbers. Right, anonzi ma-rational numbers, ma-numbers ekuti anokwanisa kuexpresswa as ma-fractions, numbers that can be expressed in the form A over B, they are called rational numbers. All right, for example, if we say 3 over 5, this is a rational number because it can be expressed in a fractional form. Then irrational numbers, we're talking of numbers that cannot be expressed in a fractional form. For instance, we have numbers like pi. All right, we have numbers like e. All right, for those who are going to pursue advanced level mathematics, this is where you're going to look at e, which is called Euler's constant. All right, so these are called irrational numbers. Okay, we're going to have a lesson on its own, whereby we're going to be looking at irrational numbers and rational numbers. All right, then the next objective is to distinguish between rational and irrational numbers. So ukapuwa manamba akaita mutserendende achinda akadai so, unofanira kuziva kuti pamanamba akaita mutserendende achinda akadai so ndaapi ma-rational ndeapi ma-irrational numbers. You have to identify those numbers and it titose papo. Right, then the next objective, you need to identify number patterns in a sequence. Number patterns in a sequence. Sequence is that my number futa akaita mutorododo. For instance, unoona nze 2 4 6 8 10. Right, is sequence yema numbers unofanira kuwisisa futi kuti zvokufamba sei ipapo. Kuti ubve pane imwe number uchienda pane imwe number zvokufamba sei, tiri kuedha 2 here, tiri kudivhaidha 2 here, tiri kutimesa nani, zvichienda zvakadaro. Tofanira kugara chizviunderstanda izvozvo. Then the next concept, you need to solve problems involving irrational numbers. Okay, it's also very, very important that you solve problems involving irrational numbers. Okay, right, so the suggested notes and activities pertaining to this concept yema numbers nema operations. You need to apply the rules of precedence in real numbers. You need to perform operations. You need to differentiate between rational and irrational numbers, to explore and to discover number patterns, to solve problems involving irrational numbers. And the suggested resources that we have in as far as that our topic is concerned, we need to look at my relevant texts, all right? I recommend the New General Mathematics Book 3 and Book 4, in addition to other texts that we might have, and also other ICT tools, the internet, etc., etc. Right. So we are done with this one. Next concept, ratio rates and proportions. So under ratio rates and proportions, the learning objectives that we have with regards to that topic are as follows. First and foremost, we need to simplify ratios to perform calculations involving ratios, rates, and proportion. And it, right. Primary okay? To that primary level, yakato kujamba. So pamakatinda ku secondary, however, the good news is that we are going to revise all those things. Primary level, JC level, ordinary level, okay? Then the next objective is to apply direct and inverse proportion to solve problems. And it proportion do you choose right? $1 my US, for example, is let's say 10 pounds. And it how about $5? What do we do? Right? More or less, you know, that concept is simple proportion. Grade 5, grade 6. And the suggested notes and activities that we have: reducing ratios to the simplest form and sharing quantities using ratio, calculating and solving problems involving ratio, rate, and proportion, and also solving problems involving direct inverse proportion, focusing on life situations. For example, basa, right? Rugushan 105, Runutura 10 days. Kukanaba 2, which operate at the same rate, one Ramazwamangan. You know those kind of problems. That's what we are talking about. You know, simple proportion. And it, all right. Then, the next concept, we are going to look at the ordinary and the standard form. Then the learning objective that we have in as far as this topic is concerned, we need to perform operations in standard form, right? Standard form chi. Numbers are written in the form a times 10 to the power n, where a is a number between 1 and 10 and n is an integer, right? And normally standard form could represent a number that number dogo sterek, right? For those who were fortunate enough to be in the year 2008, Gorejara, Takambosha sama billion na trillion and this. So I've under $5 trillion. $5 trillion. My number I want this as right? Muchuruguranga number zones gonna 3 times 10 to the power 6. 10 to the power 6, so that is 6 minus 0, which is a million. And it, all right? So as no revando so kuti, this is a way you talk on Oshandisa to simplify in terms of pronouns and numbers and stuff like that. All right? Don't worry, we're going to look at that as a concept. We're going to have a video recording on that particular topic. The suggested notes and activities that we have with regards to ordinary and standard form, adding and subtracting numbers in standard form, and also dividing and multiplying numbers in standard form. And it, all right? Just tell in more detail, but just a video recording, the ordinary and standard form. Next concept. Right, this is water under the bridge. So to tika takadaiso. Takuinda kunonzuma number bases, and it, right? Tinema bases akasiyana. Munomuziva kuti shansa inonzi dinari called base 10. Base 10 is out isusu number dzedu i10 madigits 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 i10 madigits why ndo atoshandisa in our everyday activities. Alright, vanoita computer programming vanoshandisa binary system, right? Kurava kuti vanoshandisa 0 na 1 2 madigits why. Alright, then in other countries vanoshandisa base 5 system zvinoenda zvakadaro. So we are going to look at how to manipulate number bases, particularly the suggested notes and activities with regards to this topic are as follows. We are supposed to be able to add and subtract numbers in other bases and to solve equations involving number bases, isn't it? All right, so this is now water under the bridge. Let's move on to the next concept, scales and simple map problems, isn't it? All right, so the first learning objectives under scales and simple map problems are as follows. Right, we need to use given scales and to calculate distance and area. Right, remember mathematics is subject to wacha koche. Kachito wacha koche ndikutaura kuti topic yawaita kumashure ichakubatsira pa next zvinda zvakadaro. Saka kuti ugone kuunderstanda mascale nemasimple map problems unofanira kunzwisisa ratio nemaproportions, and both zvinoshanda pa next topic apa. Saka iwe wagara wakutiwa netopic yokumashure iyi chibva watoziva kuti kumberi ukoko rinenge riri maroga, unenge uchiona svosve dema riri padombo dema muri muusiku hutema, handiti? Right, saka unofanira kugara wakaziva iwewo kuti pamaconcepts ose auchafamba nawo ziva kuti topic yawaita nhasi ichakubatsira mangwana. Ndinonga tiri kunzwanana ipapo. Right, another objective is to solve problems involving distance and area using scale, isn't it? All right, don't worry about that. We are going to look at it in our next lecture series. Right, so the content of this topic, we're going to look at a scale factor. We are also going to look at area factor, isn't it? Suggested notes and activities. 1, calculating distance and area using given scales, finding area factor given the scale factor, finding scale factor given the area factor, applying scales in solving problems in life situations. Mazwano kune nonzi color kana the continuous assessment learning activity, and in most of these color activities topic iyoyi inenge iripo. For example, unogona kungonzi right pamba penyu chap indonomeasure kuti length ne width yepamba penyu yakamira sei, chicalculate area, chiweka zvakati yobva yaita continuous assessment ichanocontribute 30% in the Zimbabwe Schools Examinations Council. Right, next concept ichatarisa anonzi masets. A set is a collection of objects. So under sets, the first concept we are going to discuss, we are going to describe sets using a set builder notation. Set builder notation. We are supposed to draw my Venn diagrams to show a relationship between different subsets, and also we are going to solve problems using Venn diagrams. Okay? Then the suggested notes and activities, listing elements of sets, using symbols of sets to describe my sets, describing sets using the set builder notation, demonstrating relationship of different subsets, discussing Venn diagrams with up to 3 subsets, and solving problems involving Venn diagrams. Right, so my sets techitaura kuti ndo nhaurwa dzacho dziripo maringe namasets. Next topic inonzi consumer arithmetic, inofola under section inonzi financial mathematics. Ungatadza hako zvimwe zvese izvi asi usafa wakatadza izvi zviri apapa izvi, because maths dziri apapa imaths dzinoinvolva madollar signs, kureva kuti maths dzinoinvolva mari mukati. Zviri nani hako utadze trigonometry panoti utadze zvinoinvolva madollar signs. So under consumer arithmetic, the first objective, we are to interpret my bank statements, and it, you know, in banking kune ma deposits, kune ma withdrawals, right? Kune ma statement anonyorwa nema bank achikuratidza kuti yo mari yawaisa imari, mari yawabvisa imari, mari yawakwereta imari, and all those things. Kune medzi dzakadero tofanira kugona kugara tichidzirangarira idzodzo. We need to calculate compound interest, and we also need to calculate commission, and we also need to solve problems on higher purchase. Higher purchase vanoita commerce ndofunga munoiziva, yotiwo kana uchitenga chinhu chinoti dhure mchana, unobvisa deposit wopuwa chinhu chacho, wobva wabhadhara nemonthly installments kusvika wapedza. Saka kune maths dzinoinvolva zvinhu izvozvo tichange tichidzita sei tichidzidzidza ipapo. Suggested notes and activities on this concept: discussing the contents of the bank statement, extracting data from bank statements to use it for calculations, and also discussing compound interest, commission, and hire purchase, and also computing compound interest, commission, and hire purchase. Right. The next concept is called mensuration. And don't confuse it with the mensuration in science, whereby the female organisms are passing out those items. Right. Mensuration in mathematical terms, and it. Pama learning objectives, right? The first one, we are supposed to calculate perimeter of combined shapes. Remember, perimeter is the distance right around an object. So you need to calculate perimeter. Yema shapes akasiyana. You need to also calculate the area of combined shapes. And you also need to calculate the volume of cylinders. Right? Papanoshanda ma formula. For example, area of a triangle, half base times height, called half AB sine theta. Right, area of a trapezium, half A plus B multiplied by the height. Right, you need to know volume of a cylinder is equals pi r squared h. Right, the suggested notes and activities on this concept are as follows. You need to calculate perimeter and the area of combined shapes, calculate the volume of cylinders, carry out an experiment to show the relationship between mass and volume, and also you need to solve problems involving mass and volume. So mensuration teshitara kuti zvadi zvaendwa takaenda. Right. Let's look at the functional graphs. That's the next concept. So under functional graphs, the first objective, you need to use the functional notation. Functional notation known as the f of x. All right. So the functional notation f of x is used in evaluating functions. Is also used in solving linear and quadratic equations. And it, if I'm not mistaken, this formula yakatangwa na Euler, and it, the great mathematician Euler, and it. You also need to draw graphs of linear and quadratic functions using my table of values, and it. Linear and quadratic functions. Remember, a linear function is a function which contains, let's take for example, y is equal to x plus 3. This is a linear function. Why? Because the highest power of the unknown numbers is 1. So if you draw a table of values, what will end up a graph, it will give you a straight line graph, and it just starts the coordinate geometry, but it's y is equal to mx plus c and all those kind of things. You know what I'm saying? Then my quadratic, so y is equal to x squared plus 3x plus 5. Right? I am a function, the highest power of the unknown number is a squared. And these graphs are parabolic. You are getting my curve. The cup-shaped parabola, cap-shaped parabola, etc., etc. Right? We'll discuss it in more detail. Right? Then you need to sketch my straight line graph. You need to sketch my quadratic graph. And also you need to use my axis intercepts. And use your graphs to find the unknown values in linear and quadratic equations. Suggested notes and activities: discussing use of functional notation using familiar functions, drawing linear and quadratic graph, sketching my straight line and quadratic graphs, and also finding my unknown values in linear and quadratic equations using the graphs. Zvaendwa zvakadai. Toenda next, anonzi my travel graphs. Under travel graphs, the first objective, you need to draw distance time graphs, okay? And then you need to draw my speed time graphs. You need to solve problems involving travel graphs. All right. So, suggested notes and activities, discussing a relationship involving distance, speed, and time in everyday life, drawing distance time and speed time graphs, solving problems in life involving travel graphs. This is done. Next concept, the variation. Okay? The first objective, you need to express inverse variation in algebraic terms. Variation, if you still remember, F is proportional to A. This sign means F varies directly as A. Variation. So, a relationship between two quantities. Whether you are increasing one quantity, the other is increasing, and reverse is also true. Right, if variation yo-yo. So we need to express inverse variation in algebraic terms. The next objective, you need to distinguish between direct and inverse variation. You need to illustrate direct and inverse variation using sketch graphs. And you also need to solve problems involving variation. Suggested notes and activities, discussing relationships showing direct or inverse variation, discussing examples of direct and inverse variation, sketching graphs of direct and inverse variation, and last but not least, solving problems involving variation. So variation is now water under the bridge. Next concept, algebraic manipulations. Right, algebra is the use of letters to represent numbers in mathematics. So we need to know how to manipulate algebraic expressions. So under our objectives, and as far as this topic is concerned, first and foremost, we are required to find the highest common factor and the lowest common multiple of algebraic expressions. We need to simplify algebraic fractions. We also need to factorize quadratic expressions of the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where the modulus of a is less than 1. We also need to factorize algebraic expressions. Suggested notes and activities, finding LCM and the HCF of algebraic expressions, simplifying algebraic fractions, factorizing quadratic expressions, and also factorizing algebraic expressions. Right, algebra. You've a papo. Teacher for Ramberi, no for Ramberi. We now want to look at equations. Right, by definition of my equations, we are talking of these are algebraic statements in which two quantities are equal in value. So the first objective, we need to solve linear simultaneous equations. Simultaneous linear equations using the following methods: the elimination method, the substitution method, the graphical method. Remember my graph? Teta taura kara pakanzi functional graphs up. So patozo shiga up. Kusolve simultaneous equation aswano kunetsa because apa unongo chipaziva. So ndachitara paya kuti metsi hoche koche dzinopindirana matopic zvinda zvakadaro. Next objective, we need to solve quadratic equations using the factorization method and using the graphical method. We also have to know how to change the subject of the formula. And we also need to know how to substitute values in a given formula. And then suggested notes and activities, solving simultaneous equations, solving problems from life situations, changing the subject of the formula, substituting values in given formulae, and discussing change of subject and its applications. Right. apa zvazvadi zvazvapera zvakadai. Toenda kuma-inequalities. Ma-inequality by definition togona kuti ma-opposites ema-equation, because equation zvezvi zvinoti pane equal sign zvinhu zvakaenzana. Kana ya-inequality zvinorada hazvina kuenzana. Kana zvisina kuenzana zvinoreva kuti chimwe chiri greater kana chiri less, kana chiri greater or equal to kana less or equal to. Ndo nyaya dzatichitaura pama-inequalities. So objectives regarding inequalities are as follows. First one, we need to solve simultaneous linear inequalities in one variable. We need to represent solutions set on a number line graph, and we need to solve simultaneous linear inequalities graphically. Okay. So zvapera zvakadai. Next, we are looking at indices and logarithms. Right, the first objective, simplify algebraic expressions involving indices. Another my indices, my powers, and it. All right, my exponents. So I found 3 to the power 2, the 9, So next objective, we need to define logarithms. We need to evaluate logarithms. We need to apply the laws of logarithms to evaluate logarithms. We need to simplify expressions using laws of logarithms. And we also need to solve equations involving indices and logarithms. And my indicinal equations, cut my logarithmic equations. And it. Right. Next concept. Points, lines, and angles. And it. First objective, you need to construct angles of elevation and depression. Elevation, kukwidza mudenga techibva pa horizontal line tokwidza mudenga. Depression kudzika pazasi tobva pa horizontal line tichidzika pazasi. You need to solve problems on angles of elevation and depression. Anditi zvoda kuzikanwa izvozvo. Next is called bearing. The first objective on bearing, you need to illustrate bearing on diagrams. And the second objective, you need to solve problems involving three-figure bearing and compass bearings. And bearing is a very important concept because when on geography, bearing is also applicable. So this is so far and three-figure bearing, compass bearing, etc., etc. Right. Next concept, they are polygons. A polygon is a shape with many sides. So the first objective under polygons is as follows. You need to describe the properties of a polygon. You need to solve problems involving n-sided polygons. You need to apply the properties of n-sided polygons. Right? Kuna wanita read ahead. And it pane formula runs n minus 2 multiplied by 180. Formula and chance calculator. The total of the interior angles of a polygon. This is one of the concepts that you are going to encounter. Tripa topic yema polygons. Ipapo. Takadai takaenda. Next concept is called similarity and congruency. The first objective under similarity and congruency is as follows. You need to find the scale factor from two given similar shapes. You need to calculate the length and the size of similar figures. No concept the ratio of corresponding sides is equal. We need to understand those things. Right? You need to calculate the area of similar figures, the area factor. And you also need to calculate the volume and mass of similar objects, the volume factor. Right. Next one, constructions and loci. So under constructions and loci, take shansa ruler and compass. No part constructor pa 90 degrees, 60 degrees, perpendicular bisector angle. Nema loci I am equidistant from one point, equidistant from 2 points, etc., etc. Understand that. So under constructions and loci, the first objective, you need to construct triangles, you need to construct quadrilaterals, and you need to solve life problems using constructions of triangles and quadrilaterals. Next topic, we're talking of symmetry. Remember, my objects are symmetrical, anengari superimposable, and two superimposable mirror images. Yes, symmetry. So under symmetry, we're going to be looking at the following concepts. One, we are supposed to identify rotational symmetry in 2 dimensions. Secondly, we need to state the order of rotational or point symmetry in plane shapes. And we need to solve problems involving rotational symmetry. So this is as far as symmetry is concerned. Right. Next concept, data collection, classification, and representation. It falls under statistics. Right. So the first objective, we need to collect statistical data. Second objective, we need to group raw data into classes. Third objective, we need to state the class width for the grouped data. We need to construct frequency tables. We are talking of what are frequency tables, okay? Then the next objective, we need to draw my bar charts, my pie chart, my histogram, and my frequency polygons. We also need to analyze information on the graphs. Okay. Next concept, measures of central tendency. Measures of central tendency, they also fall under statistics. First point, we need to compute the mean of group data. Mean in the average, and you have to know 8 divided the number to next objective, we need to find the mode and the median. Mode, no number appear more frequently than the median, no number one packet, just explain after so. Right? We need to calculate the mean using the assumed mean. We are also going to discuss about that again. Next concept, the trigonometry. Right, trigonometry is the study of triangles. So under trigonometry, first and foremost, we are going to look at the Pythagoras theorem from the Greek mathematician as Pythagoras around 250 BC. 250 BC to 250 years before Jesus Christ was born. Kune munhu anga kutoita maths dzema triangles. Because amwe munhu ari mu 21st century ari kurarama under WhatsApp ne TikTok. Ari kunetseka nezvinhu zvakagadzirwa nemumwe munhu akazviita 200 years before Jesu azvarwa. All right. So under the Pythagoras theorem, first we need to derive the Pythagoras theorem. We need to solve right-angled triangles by applying the Pythagoras theorem. We need to show whether the given triples are Pythagorean. For example, we have the 3, 4, 5 Pythagorean triple. All right? Pythagoras theorem is water under the bridge. Next concept, we are going to look at what are known as trigonometrical ratios. Trigonometrical ratios and why to summarize that chashotao sokatoa. So the first objective with regards to trigonometrical ratios is as follows. We need to find the sine, cosine, and tangent of acute angles. We need to find the sine, cosine, tangent of obtuse angles. We need to solve problems involving right-angled triangles in 2 dimensions. Right. Let's look at vector geometry. Under vector geometry, the first objective is as follows. You need to describe the types of vectors, to represent types of vectors on the Cartesian plane, to identify the various types of vectors on the Cartesian plane. Right? Ndoma types, ema vectors. We also need to understand the operations in vectors, which means addition of vectors, subtraction of vectors, multiplication of a vector by a scalar, calculating the magnitude of a vector, and solving problems involving vector operations. Do nyazima vectors idzodzo. Right. Next concept, matrices. Matrices, these are rectangular array of numbers. So under matrices, we need to know the operations of matrices. Addition of matrices, subtraction of matrices, multiplying a matrix by a scalar, and also multiplying matrices using the row by column multiplication procedure. We also need to understand the determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix, to distinguish between a singular and a non-singular matrix, to use the fact that the determinant of a singular matrix is 0, right? To find the unknown in a 2 by 2 matrix, to solve problems involving singular and non-singular matrices. We also need to know how to find the inverse of a 2 by 2 matrix, and also to solve simultaneous equations using the matrices method. Transformations. Learning objectives. We need to translate plane figures on Cartesian plane using translation vectors. You need to describe fully the translations between given objects and images. You also need to know reflection, you need to know rotation, you need to know enlargement. So under transformation, my key objectives are translation, reflection, rotation, and enlargement. I know that most people, when they hear the word transformation, they shiver as if they've seen a ghost. Last but not least, in our Form 3 mathematics syllabus, probability, the likelihood of an event to occur or not to occur. So, my objectives are under probability. They are as follows. 1, we need to describe experimental and theoretical probability. We need to deduce probabilities from results of experiments. We need to identify situations where experimental and theoretical probabilities are applied. We need to use probability rules to compute probabilities of single events. We need to solve problems that involve experimental and theoretical probabilities in life. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have with regards to the Form 3 syllabus, Zimbabwe Schools Examinations Council, Mathematics. I want to thank Faume Media crew for making this production a success. I am your host, Chico Squared. Be blessed and stay blessed. Thank you so much.